All right, let's do some questions where we're going to simplify an expression that has multiplication in it. So we see here I've got 4 times A times B times C. And I must read the question properly, and what it wants is it wants it without the multiplication sign. Now I know when I'm multiplying letters and numbers, I don't have to write the multiplication sign. So all I have to do is write 4A, B, C. And they're already in alphabetical order, so that's my answer. B. Simplify 4A times 2B times 3C. Now, let's see what's going on here. I'm going to split it up first so that you can see what the different parts mean. I've got 4 times A times 2 times B times 3 times C. You don't have to write out that step, but you do need to write out the next step to show you're working. What I want to now do is I'm going to rearrange the parts. Because we can multiply in any order, I can move the letters and numbers around without changing the result. That's only if we have multiplication. I'm going to put all of the numbers at the start. 4 times 2 times 3. Then I'm going to put the letters in alphabetical order. Times A times B times C. So you do need to write out that step. Next, I'm going to try simplify it. Now I cannot write 4, 2, 3 and get rid of those multiplication signs because 423 is not the answer. But I can do the actual multiplication. So what is 4 times 2? That is 8. And then 8 times 3? That is 24. So I've got 24 in my numbers. Now I look at my letters. And my letters, I just need to take away those multiplications and make sure it's in alphabetical order. And what I have left is A, B, C. So what I've now done is I've taken this and I've made it more simple. So I'm simplifying today still using multiplication. Lastly, I have C, 3W times 4W. Again, I'm going to write it out, putting each of my parts separately. Next, I'm going to put the numbers at the start. 3 times 4 times W times W. All right, 3 times 4 is 12. All right, and then I have W times W. And when we multiply something by itself, it's squared. So I've got W squared. So that's 12W squared. So that is how we can simplify some expressions using multiplication. You have a go at trying these ones. All right, let's very quickly go through these answers. A, I'm writing them without a multiplication sign. Now my 5 is in the middle, but I want to put my 5 at the start. So I've got 5. And then I've got 3 letters. I don't need to put a multiplication in between them, but I do need to put them in alphabetical order. A, B, C, D, E, F. Done. B, I've got 3 times X times 5 times Y times 2 times Z. I'm putting all of my numbers at the start. 3 times 5 times 2 times X times Y times Z. Got to write it all out, can't lose some bits. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 times 2 is 30. And then I've got X, Y, Z. Done. And lastly, C. 2 times A times 5 times A, which is 2 times 5 times A times A. And 2 times 5 is 10, and A times itself is A squared. Now that we know how to simplify with multiplication, let's try some when there's some division involved. Write 3x plus 1 divided by 5 without the division sign. So what I have to do is simplify this by just getting rid of the division. I know that I can write division over my fraction bar. So everything in the brackets goes above 3x plus 1. And then what's it being divided by? 5. That's all I have to do. Let's try B. Simplify the expression 8AB over 12B. Now, the next step I would do is to write it all out and spread it out so I can see what I'm working with. 8 times A times B. 12 times b. Now we can see if there's any common factors. I automatically see that I've got two b's. B divided by b is going to make them both 1. So I'm replacing that, and that's becoming a 1. 8 divided by 12. I have to think what's common in 8 and 12. Well, they are both even numbers. They're both even numbers. So if I divide 8 by 2, I'll get 4. And if I divide 12 by 2, I'll get 6. Now I need to write out what's left, which is 4 times a times 1 and 6 times 1. Okay? Now I can automatically see that the 4 and the 6 are still not that simple because they're both still even numbers. So I'm going to do it again. How many times is 2 go into 4? That's 2 times. How many times is 2 go into 6? That's 3 times. All right, I'm going to write out what I have left. I have 2 times a times 1 and 3 times 1. Now I can simplify that by getting rid of any multiplications and any times 1 because that just stays the same, leaving me with 2a over 3. All right, you try some. Let's quickly go through these answers. Write this without a division sign. All right, the first thing is what's being divided, so it goes on top and everything in the brackets. So that's 3x plus 2. Now, because there's brackets in what the divisor, that means that that whole thing is underneath the fraction bar. So there you go. And B, simplify the expression. 12pqr divided by 15pr. First step, I'm going to write out all the parts. 12 times p times q times r over 15 times p times r. Now I have to think of a common factor between 12 and 15, and the highest common factor is probably your best bet, and I think it's 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Now I see a p and a p. P divided by p is going to result in a 1 and a 1, and an r as well. R is a 1 and a 1. Now I'm going to write out what's left over. I've got 4 times 1 times q times 1, 5 times 1 times 1. Now you don't have to write out this step. That's just voluntary. I can get rid of the multiplications and the 1, which I have 4q left and 5 left. That's done. I hope now you can see that we can also simplify expressions if they have multiplication and division, and that you know the steps of how to do that. Hi, this is me trying to edit the video that you saw today, but the attack dogs won't leave me alone.